Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining me for another children's storytime lesson. I'm super happy you're here with me today because I've got a great story for you. But before we start with today's story, I want to know what comes to mind when you hear the word church. Do you picture being here at Christ Church? Or do you think of an old stone building with some tall ceilings? Or do you think of a newer building with a ton of seating and lights and space for a lot of people? Or do you think of something completely different? Maybe you can pause the video and talk to your family and try and figure out what comes to mind when you hear the word church. And if you come up with an answer, you can put it in the comments section. But that plays an important role in today's story. And in today's service, one of the first readings talks about how we are children of God. Now, what do you think that means? To me, when you hear that, or whenever we read that we're the children of God, that makes me think that we are called to represent God and show God's love to all people. And that we are loved by God. And in a way, we are being called to be the church. Now, you might think, how can we be a church? We're not a building. Last I checked, I'm not stony and older. Well, I might be a little bit old, but I'm not a building. How can I be the church? Well, that's where today's story comes into play. Today's story is called This is the Church, and it's by Sarah Raymond Cunningham and illustrated by Ariel Landley. So, let's get started. This is the Church by Sarah Raymond Cunningham. And as we go through the story, think about all the different examples of what a church is like, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. All right. There's a little rhyme that children say, a song that they sing sometimes when they play. This rhyme is about God's family. To do it, just move your hands like me. Here we have some kids playing. I think this is our storyteller, our narrator. Here is the church. Here is the steeple. Open the doors and see all the people. What a great rhyme. Isn't it neat? But wait, this story's not yet complete. There's more to the church than just those two lines. To learn about God's family, let's add to this rhyme. Oh yeah, so here you go. We have the church, the steeple, and all those people. But there's more. Some churches are so big and wide, 10,000 people can fit inside. And look at that. The person preaching looks pretty small in that building. Have you ever been to a church this big? If you have, you can put it in the comments section. Other churches are really quite small. They fit just a few people, and that is all. And look at that. Now compare this church to that church. I kind of like this one. I like the field, and if you look real close, you can see some sheep in the background too. Some people have church right where they are. Right in their houses. That's not very far. Have any of you been watching church at home? I think a lot of us have been doing that this year. That is pretty neat. And not all churches have roofs and floors. Some don't have steeples. Some don't have doors. Some people have church under the stars. and God comes and meets them right where they are. And look at that. We have the city over here, but over here in the woods, you have a few people having their own service by the fire. That's pretty peaceful. And in places where it's not safe to be found, some people even have church underground. And look at that. We have some people here in the middle of a service. Could be by candlelight. And church isn't something that stands still, you know. The church follows God's people wherever they go. Look at that. Looks like the church service is over and we have our parishioners going about their way. The church moves in buses, planes, and cars. To share God's love, the church has gone far. The church works among the sick, hungry, and poor, with people in need wherever they are. Look at that. We have some people driving around in a bus, and then we have some people here helping their community. We have some people praying over a meal and serving out food. Have you ever done that before? Have you ever served food for a community? It is a lot of fun. It's gone to cities, it's gone to towns, to school and to work. The church gets around. But how does this work? How can this be? Can a church really move like you and me? I don't know. What do you think the answer is? You see, that's the secret. It certainly can. Church moves through your feet. It works through your hands. And look at that. You have them doing some pretty good help for the community by painting a building. The people are the church. Don't you see? Church is a word for God's family. And look at that. Look at all those people coming from everywhere to be a part of the church and a part of God's family. Because Jesus said, where there are 2 or 3 who gather in my name, that's where I'll be. So let's go back to that old rhyme now. Get your hands ready. We'll show you how. Here is a building. It may have a steeple, but where's the church? The church is the people. On this day, the church welcomes you. You are a part of God's people. You are the church too. And look at that. The end. So, in this story, it reminds us that we are called to be the church, to share God's love and be a part of God's family. And we can be a part of we can be the church and be a part of God's family by doing all of these great actions that help serve other people. And as they said in the story, the church doesn't have to be in a building. God meets us wherever we are. This has been a pretty long year. We've had to stay at home a lot, and we haven't been able to come to Christ Church. We haven't been able to step inside the building and sit in the pews like we used to. But we've gotten to be creative, and we've had services outdoors. We've had it in our little garden in the close, and we've thought of different ways to have our services. But it's also important to remember that we are called to be the church, and we are called to show God's love and represent the church wherever we go. So maybe you're in the grocery store and somebody drops something. Maybe you can run and help them pick it up and show them that kind of act of kindness. And throughout the week, I'm sure there are going to be plenty of opportunities to show acts of kindness and to show that to show that you are a part of the church and to show that you are a part of God's family. That's all I've got for today, but I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope that you continue to look for those moments where you can show God's love to your neighbors around your neighborhood and in your community. And I think that's about it. So I'll close this out with a little prayer. The Lord be with you. God of love and compassion, thank you for our daily reminders of how we are called to love one another and to be the church, how we're called to help those in need and to show that the church is more than just a building, that we are called to be in community with one another and that you are present with us always. Amen. All right, everyone. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.